Ruth describes how she put our previous conversation into practice while George learns to sleep by himself. She remains responsive to George while showing him what she expected. This alongside health visiting approach recognises Ruth's parenting style and the skills and emotional needs of both George and Ruth. So alongsideness is about connected relationships. It's about equality and mutual respect, in which beliefs, hopes and parenting style are important. All views are valuable, but responsibility for decisions rests with parents, and encouragement is key. Okay, so just tell me what George is like now. I mean, how he is generally.
Now? Yeah, he's pretty... I was going to say he's pretty chilled out. He's not pretty chilled out. He's very, very cheerful most of the time these days, except he is incredibly attention-seeking. So, I mean, he's lovely, absolutely brilliant fun, but, you know, I can't leave him on his own to play for, like, 2 minutes, really.
And how old? He must be at 6 months now. Is he just 6 months?
Yeah, he was 6 months on Tuesday.
By 6 months of age, babies are usually mature enough to learn to put themselves to sleep and to put themselves back to sleep when they wake in the night. It is normal for new babies to wake at regular intervals. Newborn cycles of sleep and wakefulness are shallow, in a dreamlike state. As they mature, babies sleep deeper and for longer periods. What led you to ask for help?
I knew that we were stuck in a vicious cycle and needed to get out of it. So talking to you and hearing you sort of talk me through the things about managing the disappointments and also talking about what it is, what him crying does to me, why I felt that strongly. Also desperation, let's be honest. I had reached the end of my tether.
Tell me about George's sleeping.
When he was really little, he used to sleep really well. For the first 3 months of his life, he screamed all day, but slept all night. Never slept in the day at all. And then as soon as he hit it was about 13 weeks, I think, he stopped the screaming, or certainly started to calm the screaming down, but he also stopped sleeping at night. And from 3 months until, 2 weeks ago, he was pretty much waking up anything between every hour to every 3 hours. Yeah. You couldn't predict it at all. We were co-sleeping. It was getting to the point where it was very difficult. There wasn't really room for us in the bed, and he was hanging off my boob all night. And because also he wouldn't sleep during the day, so the only way to get him to sleep in the day was to take him on long walks. So I was not sleeping all night and then going out walking all day, and I just hit a point where I just thought I can't do this anymore at all. So yeah, that's why I came to you for help, really.
Yes. Babies learn the clues they need for going to sleep. George needs the nipple and to be held every time. He could learn new sleep clues for doing it by himself in the night.
You weren't really eating, you just thought you needed it there to sleep.
You had tried other things before you... Yes.
Yeah, I was doing... read a book called The No Cry Sleep Solution by Elizabeth Pantley, which was really good, in that it gave me the idea of moving his cot to the side of our bed and attaching that, and gave me tips on, you know, I mean, until I read that book, he was going to bed when we were going to bed, and sleeping in our bed. For babies who feed to sleep, it involved sort of removing him while he was sleepy and putting him down, and then he'd root, and you pick him back up, and you do it again and again and again until eventually he gets the picture and does go down sort of away. We did it sort of just for the first feed of the night for probably about a month actually, and then we put the side up on the cot and moved it to the other side of the room, which was another sort of part of her plan.
Some babies you could see probably would go along with that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I think he might have done, if I'd done it every feed, says in the book, it might take up to a month. It's not, it's not a quick fix, but it's, if you don't want them to cry, then it will work eventually. Something that was going to be quicker, I think.
Withdrawing gradually can take a long time. Baby may not understand what is happening and find it confusing to the clues he is learning about going to sleep. Why did you choose that gradual withdrawing method?
Because I couldn't stand the idea of him crying.
Yeah, so you knew about the other method that's commonly used.
I knew about controlled crying. I just couldn't bear the thought of it. I just didn't like the idea of leaving him on his own in a room and only going back after 15 minutes and not being able to talk to him and just...
So that bit's really, really important, that bit of why you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like having a certain idea of how you wanted to be a mother.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Parenting styles are founded on instincts which are unique for every parent.
Even though he didn't stop crying, it didn't make much difference to whether he was crying or not. I liked to be holding him the whole time and helping him through it. And so the idea then of doing the controlled crying just...
Leaving him.
Yeah, just felt wrong, really.
So you wanted to be able to respond to him whenever he asked for you, just like with demand feeding right from the very beginning. If he asked for you, you wanted to be there for him. Because it felt like the right thing to do.
Exactly.
Removing gradually is actually a really good idea because it does help you to still be there with him.
Yeah.
Ruth instinctively looked for a method to fit her beliefs and style. To be able to help George learn to sleep, she needed to think about her intentions and consider the influence of her concerns. You couldn't face him crying, was it? Yeah. Mothers often cannot bear to hear their babies crying. Sometimes it's because of fear that the baby might feel abandoned or lonely if she does not respond. Ruth was in a pattern of trying to stop George crying. For others, it might be because of previous worries about the baby's health or a wish to be more responsive than the mother experienced herself as a child. What's your impressions of what we did?
Because you started off by saying, you know, that I'd done everything right up to now and, you know, always being there for him is really important. And something that really struck me was the thing about talking about managing their disappointments and the story about the little girl with the giraffe.
In John Gottman's story, a child could cope without her toy giraffe when her father showed he understood her distress.
Just because he's shouting very loudly about it, but I don't think it actually necessarily means that he's any more upset than anyone else. He just wants me to know about it.
It is possible to help a baby to cope with his intense emotions. A parent can show understanding of the child's difficulties in ways that makes the disappointment bearable.
Talking about that and thinking about it as sort of... We're talking about, you know, when he's 2 and he wants an ice cream and he can't have one. Did make me sort of think...
Forceful crying can be frightening. It may be that the baby cries louder when a quieter voice doesn't work. Letting him know mother has heard and understands can be enough to contain his distress. By being alongside him, he can learn to calm himself.
Because now I can see that he's, you know, really changing and growing and, you know, whereas obviously for the first, certainly 4 or 5 months, he was very much still a baby. You can see he's growing into a little boy.
As babies grow, they're rapidly able to do more for themselves, and keeping up with what they can do can catch you by surprise.
Demand feeding and hello, mister. But that you can't be doing that still when he's 18.
It is normal for babies to strive to learn in little steps towards eventual independence. They could miss chances to learn things that they could do for themselves if we do it for them.
You said, are you sure he's not hungry? And I'm 100% convinced he's not hungry because I'm still feeding on demand and he has 3 quite large meals a day, don't you, mister, of solid food. So...
By 6 months, most babies are capable of getting all their food in the day and do not need night feeds. So what did you do?
Right, well, I was staying with my mum when I was doing it, which I think was incredibly helpful, actually. She was, you know, she's 1 step removed from it. And so she was able to sort of keep me strong. I did his routine as usual.
A simple bedtime routine near the cot creates familiarity and a calm step towards the new experience.
The last step of the routine is breastfeed and then bed. And I literally just fed him for, I mean, it was probably no more than a couple of minutes because I walked him over to the cot and sang the song that I've always sung. But I think because he's used to the routine, he goes off very quickly on that last feed of the night. And so as soon as his eyes started to droop, I pulled him off. Then I said to him, you're going to go to sleep all on your own now, like a big boy. I know you can do it. You're a very big, clever boy.
Ruth separated George's feeding from his going to sleep. He was awake when he went into his cot.
To be honest, he never got as distressed that time as I thought he would.
Ruth's confidence was experienced by George. He could take clues about how he was doing from his mother. Ruth gave a clear message about what she expected him to do.
So I really thought if I'd ever tried anything where it involved leaving him to cry, he'd work and he'd have the stamina that he would keep going for hours and hours and hours. And actually it took half an hour and he was, and I did go back in very quickly because, as I say, I'm not happy about leaving him to cry on his own.
Go back after a minute.
Yeah, So I went back in and I just said, look, I know, I can hear you, and I know it's really hard for you, but I also know that you can do it and you don't need me for this. And you're a big clever boy.
By appearing quickly when George called, Ruth satisfied her need to respond to him. George was reassured that she would always come when he called her. She did not confuse him by picking him up. Ruth's actions and confidence told her, when you call, I come, but I know you can do this. Babies take emotional clues from their parents.
As I say, it took half an hour, and I was going back in quite regularly in that time. I thought it was going to go in about 15 minutes because he kept sort of, it would die down, and then he'd sort of fight it and come back again. So I started going back in less frequently when I could hear that he was going off. But I also noticed that he settled when I went in, which...
Ah, yes, when he saw you coming.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely calms him when I go in there, which... again, I thought it would make him more angry, but it didn't at all. Well, it was about 8 o'clock, probably by the time he'd gone off to sleep. I think it was about 7:30 when I started putting him down. And then he went through until 11:30, and then I think he got woken. I think I came to bed and I was in the same room as him, and then it took an hour and 45 minutes, and that was horrendous. I think half the problem then was that I was in the room with him, so I tried to get up and just get out of bed and go and speak to him and go and get back into bed, and I think he found that frustrating. So went into Mum's room and went in with her. She'd said to do that if I thought I didn't want to be in the same room as him. Did settle, and then woke up about 2:05. And I'd said to myself at the beginning of the night, if it goes on, if it gets bad and he keeps waking up, 2 o'clock's my limit, I'm going to feed him. So at 2 o'clock, I just went straight in when he woke up, and I fed him, put him down awake. He went off pretty quickly then, I think, and went through till 5 or something. He did go off again, and then woke up again at about... I don't know, it was about 7:30, 8. And then the second night, it was a bit better, wasn't it, Mr. I think he went off to sleep in about 10-15 minutes, but he only had one wake up, and it wasn't quite as long. And then the third night, Kieran had come down here, and he did the bedtime routine.
Fathers and people familiar to the baby can do it too, if they give similar reassurance and clear messages.
He did go off then, and then he went right through from 7 at night until 7 o'clock the next morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was amazing, just absolutely amazing. We've had days where it's taken longer to go off, and we've had days where he's woken up a bit. Sometimes I don't even have to go in. So
how did you feel about the crying? Because it was quite remarkable that even from the first night, you seemed to be able to cope with, although it must have been difficult.
It was very difficult. I think having Mum helped a lot. Mum was trying to tell me that, it was all fine and he had to learn, and I was going, oh, but he's lying there on his own, he doesn't know where his mummy is. But I mean, I was going back in all the time. I really found the talking to him helped, but it helped me, certainly.
Yes. So that's the important difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
This to controlled crying is that you maintain this idea in your head that when you call me, I do come. You decide how often you think is right to go in.
Exactly. I find not being able to pick him up difficult, but then I can quite easily reason with myself that would confuse him. That,
The clearer the messages that he got, the quicker it might be.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't breaking that connection between food and sleep, actually.
Yeah.
And I feel completely liberated now that, I mean, Kieran's put him to bed quite a few times recently. He's completely fine with it, and I've always felt like it was only me that could do it.
Better sleep at night improves the day. Learning to help children contain their emotions and manage disappointments when things are not as they expect is a parenting tool useful for other family relationships. Let's
face it, the time we spend together in the day is of better quality now that I'm less tired and I feel less frustrated by the situation. And I'm just so proud of him every morning when I good sleeping, aren't you, mister? Good at sleeping. And at 5:30 in the morning, I tend to pick him up, bring him into bed with me, and I still have that thing that I always loved about co-sleeping, where I wake up and he's grinning up at me. So long as he's had a good stretch of 9-10 hours sleep.
Oh, well done. I have to say that you really, really did what you wanted to do. You really got on and did it.
Yeah, I was quite desperate. But
well done. Oh,
we did it right, didn't we, Georgie? You're clever with your sleeping.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Alongsideness seeks to solve problems in collaboration with families, taking a lead from parents' hopes, values and styles, whilst also acting as an advocate for the child. It starts with the premise that families want the best for their children, but sometimes need help to achieve it.